The millionaire's car sat stranded on the roadside. A sleek black machine tilted helplessly on a flat tire. Beside it stood a boy, just 12 years old. His hands smudged with grease as he wrestled with a stubborn lug nut. The contrast was almost jarring. A man draped in wealth, polished shoes, designer watch, and a child in scuffed sneakers, torn hoodie, and eyes too wise for his age. What brought them together wasn't luck. It was a choice, a small act of kindness from a boy who should have kept walking. But what unfolded next would prove that kindness alone was never enough. Because in a world divided by skin and status, even helping could become dangerous. Malik had seen the man pacing, his frustration sharp against the hum of the city. No one else stopped, and why would they? A millionaire broken down in the wrong neighborhood. People assumed he'd find his own way out. But Malik's mother had raised him differently. Kindness is your strength, she told him, even when life gave little reason to believe it. So he stepped forward. One voice in his head whispered caution. Don't get involved, Malik. People like him don't see kids like you. Another urged, help him. Maybe it'll change something. That tension followed him across the street, his heart hammering with every step. The man looked up, startled, almost annoyed, before quickly masking it with a thin smile. Car trouble? Malik asked softly. Just 4 words, but enough to bridge 2 worlds that rarely touched. The boy knelt to loosen the bolts, his small hands steady. The man watched closely, too closely. It wasn't gratitude in his eyes. It was calculation, suspicion. Why would a millionaire look at a child that way? Malik didn't know it yet, but this wasn't just a flat tire. This wasn't just a chance encounter. This was the beginning of a test. A cruel reminder that sometimes, no matter how much good you offer, the world can twist it into something darker. And what happened next wouldn't just change Malik's afternoon. It would change the way he saw kindness, trust, and the truth about people with power. Malik kept working, his small frame crouched low as he struggled with the stubborn bolts. The metal groaned under his effort, and sweat gathered on his forehead. The man didn't bend to help. He just stood there, arms crossed, his expensive watch catching the light with each impatient shift. "Where'd you learn to do that?" the man finally asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp, searching. Malik shrugged. "Watched my uncle fix cars." He didn't look up. Something about the man's stare made him uneasy. The bolt snapped free with a sudden pop, the sound echoing louder than it should have. Malik flinched, his nerves already tight. The man smirked. "Not bad. For a kid. For a kid." The words sank heavier than they should have. Malik had heard them before, usually followed by doubt, sometimes by dismissal. But here, with the man's gaze fixed on him, they felt like something else, like a warning wrapped in a compliment. He lifted the spare tire into place, his thin arms straining against the weight. For a moment, pride flickered through him. He was helping, making a difference, showing that even someone like him, someone invisible to most, could step in and matter. But when he finally looked up, expecting maybe a smile or even a thank you, he found only a narrow glare. The man's phone buzzed in his hand. He answered quickly, stepping a few feet away, his voice lowered but sharp. Malik caught fragments. Words like, "wrong neighborhood," "don't trust," "just a kid," "but you never know." The boy froze, the wrench still in his hand. Who was this man talking about? Him? Why would anyone not trust a child for helping with a flat tire? The man ended the call and slipped the phone back into his pocket. His smile returned, but it was thinner now, forced. "You people sure are resourceful," he muttered, as if it were a compliment. Malik's stomach tightened. He'd heard that phrase before, "you people." It always meant the same thing. A box, a wall, a reminder that no matter what he did, no matter how kind, he would always be seen as different. Less. He finished tightening the bolts, trying to ignore the sting of the words, but the silence pressed heavy. Why wasn't the man thanking him? Why did it feel like he was being watched, judged, measured for something other than the help he'd given? The tire was fixed. Malik stepped back, brushing dirt from his hands. "All set," he said quietly. The man didn't even check the work. He slid into the driver's seat, started the engine, and rolled down the window just enough to speak. "Careful out here, kid. You don't belong near cars like this, or men like me." Then the window slid shut, and the car pulled away, the hum of the engine fading into the distance. Malik stood alone on the sidewalk, the wrench heavy in his hand, the words heavier still. For a moment he couldn't move. He had helped. He had done everything right. But instead of gratitude, he was left with suspicion, labels, and a warning that echoed louder than the engine's roar. And deep down, Malik realized this wasn't just about a flat tire. It was about something far bigger, something that followed him no matter where he went, something he could never escape. Malik walked slowly, the sound of the car's engine still echoing in his ears long after it disappeared. But just as he turned the corner, headlights flared behind him. The sleek black car. The millionaire hadn't gone far. He had circled back. The window rolled down again, and the man leaned out, his face half lit by the glow of the dashboard. "Hey, kid," he called sharply. Malik froze. For a split second, hope flickered. Maybe this was the thank you he hadn't gotten, maybe a reward for his help. But the man's eyes told a different story. Cold, distrustful, calculating. "Empty your pockets," the man said flatly. Malik blinked, unsure if he'd heard right. "What?" "You heard me. My wallet's missing. You were the only one close enough to take it. Now empty your pockets." The words slammed into him like a blow. A wallet? Malik's hands trembled at his sides. He hadn't taken anything. He'd barely touched the car except for the tools. But the way the man stared at him, like guilt was written on his skin, made him feel smaller than he ever had before. "I didn't," Malik began, but the man cut him off. "Don't lie to me, boy. I know how this works." "Boy." The word landed harder than the accusation itself. Malik's chest tightened, shame burning even though he had done nothing wrong. He pulled out his pockets one by one. Lint, a pencil, a crumpled bus ticket. His hands shook as he held them out, proof of his innocence. The man's gaze lingered, scanning him as if looking for invisible evidence. Then, with a dismissive snort, he said, "Lucky this time," before revving the engine and speeding away, tires screeching against the pavement. Malik stood frozen in the street, the echo of the accusation louder than the roar of the car. He had helped. He had given his kindness freely. But in return, he had been seen only as a suspect, a thief, a threat. In that moment, Malik understood the cruel truth. For some, his skin would always speak louder than his actions. Malik walked the rest of the way home in silence, each step heavier than the last. The city around him buzzed with its usual rhythm. Cars honking, voices shouting, lights flickering on as evening settled in. But for Malik, the world felt different now. Smaller, colder. He replayed the moment again and again in his head. The man's glare, the sharp order to empty your pockets, the word boy spit like an accusation. He had done everything right. He had helped, and still he had been treated like a thief, a threat, a problem that needed to be watched. When he finally reached his front door, his mother's voice carried from inside, warm and steady, asking about his day. Malik paused, the wrench still faintly smeared on his hands. He wanted to tell her everything, that he'd helped a stranger, that kindness hadn't been enough, that suspicion had swallowed his good deed whole. But the words stuck in his throat. He didn't want her to worry. He didn't want her to see how much it hurt. That night, lying in bed, Malik stared at the ceiling. He had always believed kindness could change the world. But now he realized it wasn't that simple. Kindness couldn't erase prejudice. It couldn't silence the assumptions that came before he even opened his mouth. Still, deep down, he made himself a quiet promise. He wouldn't let one man's suspicion define him. He wouldn't let the world take away what his mother had given him. The belief that even when kindness isn't returned, it matters. Because Malik knew he wasn't alone. His story was one of millions moments of bias, of suspicion, of stolen dignity. A story whispered in different cities, on different streets, every single day. The question is, how many more times will kindness be mistaken for guilt before the world finally learns to see people for who they are, not the color of their skin?